love when I have friends on my podcast. It makes things so much easier. Today, everyone, welcome to Marketeers Clubhouse. I'm Jamie Calon, again, always the host. Today, I've got a buddy of mine that I've been dealing with for the last, you're a recent buddy, last few years. I've really come to appreciate you. Today, it's my friend, very accomplished musician, businessman, father, all the different things. Justin Kudding, welcome. To
Thanks for having me.
Clubhouse. Yeah, I have so many questions for you. I've literally got your LinkedIn pulled up here, and some of it just blows my mind because to me, you're just my friend who we work on different projects. You're a partner in a company called Plunge, which makes in-ear monitors, which we're going to get to in a minute, which is exactly what I wear for all my podcasts, and I love them. We'll explain to everybody the difference between a headphone, which is what you're wearing right now, and an in-ear monitor.
Sure.
And doesn't make a massive difference to a normal human, although if they actually paid attention, their minds would be blown. But it's a professional grade tool for a musician. So we're going to get into that. Before we do that, though, not only are you making product and marketing it towards musicians and audiophiles and that entire group of people, but you're the musical director for the Brett Kissel band, which is very impressive. You are a Juno Award-winning producer, a Juno Award-winning musician, a CCMA multi-time winner for bass player of the year. You are incredibly accomplished in your craft. And if anybody wants to see you perform, you can hop on YouTube, Google one of a ton of different videos where you're playing and you are animated and you are fun and you're like an absolute treat to watch. In fact, there's lots of friends of mine where I'm like, go see what my buddy does. And I send him over and I send him a link and it is amazing. And you are seriously an amazing talent with that. It's super fun. You've fooled around in a bunch of stuff. And, I invited you on the podcast I did with Alan Cross a while back, who's Alan. If anyone hasn't seen it, it's a great podcast. He's a alt rock historian. He's been one of Canada's most prolific DJs for radio, plus he hosts this amazing podcast and broadcast show. And you are a fan of all music, not just country music, although that's kind of your pocket where you exist right now. I've chatted with you a couple times. I get really into how music works. And I want you to you and I have talked about this sort of off air, but I'd like you to sort of explain it a little bit and how promotions work, because Alan gave us a really wide open thing. There's a million different channels you can go to become popular. You can't just do it through just YouTube. You can't just do it through just playing bars. You need to omni-channel this entire thing now, which is really when you look at it, it's actually pretty complex. There's a lot of things. So for your music career, and I know you studio musician and you do a bunch of different things. How do you guys position yourselves to grow as musicians, and what are the markets like?
Well, I mean, it's incredibly nonlinear. I'll start with that. There is no defined known path towards success, either from a musician standpoint or an artist standpoint, which makes it, I think, extra fun, but also extra challenging. Where people tend to go wrong is that they don't treat the music business like a business. I'm working with an artist right now and have been for, 5-6 years now on the production side of things. And one thing that I found so impressive about him is that he took the time to actually build out an ICP for his ideal listener and go, okay, I can't, not everyone's going to love me. So instead, I'm going to try and make one dedicated fan at a time somebody who will be really interested in what I'm doing, come to all my shows, buy my merchandise, download the next song that comes out, be really excited about all the things I'm doing because I can relate to them. They know what they're sinking their teeth into when it comes to me. And I've done that by identifying who that person is and then all the ways I can reach that person. And so whether it's the way they dress, the font they use in their posts on Instagram, the general aesthetic, these are like textbook marketing techniques that most artists never bother to apply. It's one of those things. I think the universal take is if I build it, they'll come. But in this case, it's if I build a song, they'll just appreciate how great my song is, and then I'll make fans. And you know what? It's not like that hasn't worked before. There are songs that are so exceptional that, yeah, you put the song out and people came running. However, that doesn't often lead to longevity, and that's probably one of the rarest forms of success you'll find. One of the most consistent forms of success you'll find is the slow burn, slow build, where you are targeting an audience. You have something unique to say. You have an identity that people know what you are, what you stand for, what your voice is, what you're trying to say. And then you go out and you make one fan at a time, whether that's playing as many shows as you possibly can, whether it's just creating content after content after content. That could be recorded material. That could be videos. It could be just holding the phone in front of your face and talking into it, throwing it in your stories. To me, you do that and you do it for years and years and years and years. And eventually you've made what kind of consistently has been a bit of a tipping point for artists. And that is about 1,000 fans in the world. If you have 1,000 real fans, we're talking, like I mentioned before, the people who are interested in what you're doing, they follow, they buy whatever you're selling, then you'll make a living doing music. Which let's just clarify here. There's also a difference between making a living doing music and then being a big star. And that's another thing where I think a lot of artists and musicians kind of get lost in the weeds a little bit by focusing too much on, well, I'm going to be a star, as opposed to I'm going to build a career. There's a big difference in the path, in the length of time that it takes, and also in your approach to building fans, as opposed to trying to get everybody. You try to get one person at a time, which allows you to become so much more targeted and intimate with these people. And then, yeah, you build those 1,000 fans, and now you're probably making 6 figures a year, and you can do this till you choose to stop.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I've brought it up before, and I know I've told you I'm a fan of the TV show The Voice. I'm a super fan of it. I've watched literally nearly every episode that's been produced, and it's just there's something amazingly natural about seeing these artists come through. I understand it's reality TV; it's not all it is, but it's specifically the blind auditions. There's people who have never performed in front of a single person before sometimes, and then there's professionals who've sung backup or are in touring bands but just need to sort of want to go to the next level or whatever it is. But literally watching it last night, Reba is one of the judges, and she was on there, and she had one of the judges in sort of helping coach people through. And one of the artists was just like, how do you make it in the music business? And literally the answer they gave was almost identical to what you just said. It's a business, not an art. It's art, but it's a business. And when you treat it as a business, you don't get screwed. When you treat it as an art, you are literally the bait for all the wolves, and you never make it. And you went a little deeper, which is amazing about, and putting in an actual like number against it, something quantifiable. 1,000-ish fans, 1,000, 2,000, whatever the number is. That actually, for a lot of people, I think would find that exceedingly inspirational. It's like, could I gather 1,000 fans doing what I do? Well, if you target the world properly, the answer is probably yeah, which is really interesting. Now, I would assume the more condensed that is, like going to the Kissel band, your 1,000 fans, which it's much, much more than that for you guys, which is why you guys can actually make an exceedingly good living off of it. But those are really condensed into a singular market, really primarily Canada, maybe a little bit in northern US, and potentially like something like Nashville, where they're just the ear for music is a little higher, and you guys could go down and actually still probably sell out shows in a crazy market like that. But does the density of where you put your 1,000 fans count? Like 1,000 fans spread out over the entire globe seems really nominal. 1,000 fans in the city of Calgary, well, it means you're going to actually sell out shows. If you're playing at a coffee shop, you're going to have people showing up. I would assume that there's like, in selecting how you're going to approach the fan, that by nature includes demographic a little bit. Like, it'd have to. That being said, Nickelback didn't try to just build a whole bunch of fans in Hannah. Like
Totally.
They went somewhere else. But I find it really interesting because to me, that's more inspirational. Like Alan painted a picture of, which is super true, of him receiving 500 demos a week of, literally hundreds of thousands of new music, like songs being uploaded onto Spotify or Apple or whatever it is every day.
Yep.
And cutting through the clutter and the static seems impossible. But when you put it in a way where it's like, okay, you need 1,000. Do you want to make it? If you could have like, and I bet you if you had 1,000 fans in Calgary and local area or the Toronto GTA area, you would be able to actually move around and sell shows within that space. And I think that's the accurate sort of portrayal of it, right?
Kind of, because playing shows may also not be the be all and end all, depending on the career path you want to take. I know people who their main source of income in music is not playing shows. In fact, that's really the drain. They do shows because they want to and kind of have to, but that's somewhere where they actually know they're going to be investing and losing a little bit of money. It's almost a loss leader in the space for them. Where they're making their money is in owning their masters, their recorded material, and getting it spun on certain platforms. And so, I mean, having your songs played on things like Spotify and Apple Music, like we've all heard the stories about how you make a fraction of a penny every spin. Nobody's making anything. That doesn't mean there aren't platforms where your music can make money. In particular, satellite radio is a huge one. There are channels where artists are making, close to $50 a spin. And if you get on a playlist there and you're working your way up the charts and you're getting spun multiple times, like that adds up. And I have lots of musician friends who really the lion's share of what they're making in music comes off their master ownership. And when they go out to play, they're lucky if they walk away with $200. And so having 1,000 fans that are spread around the world, from a live performance standpoint, not the most practical thing. One fan per city doesn't allow you to go city to city and play a show.
Totally.
But 1,000 fans who are engaged with your digital product and who are essentially enabling the master to make money online will actually facilitate income.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So there's literally, and I guess it kind of comes down to the taste of the artist. Like I would assume there's artists that are just so hell-bent on performing live because that's where their love exists with the communication to the audience in that like real tactile analog world. And I know like I can see it in your eyes when you talk about playing. You can see it when you play. You love playing live. Like like it's you. There's like just a completely separate version of you that comes alive in this, which is amazing. Sure. And so I guess it like there's, Alan's not wrong. There's 1,000 different paths to get to the top of this mountain. And you don't even necessarily, most people never get to the top of the mountain. Top of the mountain is rarefied air where circumstance, luck, economics, timing, all these things have to be so infinitely perfect and lined up to even remotely get there. I'm guessing that's why very few break through. Taylor Swift broke through. She's obviously a super talent, but there's 1,000 girls that sound just like Taylor. 1,000. So it's not just like there was a whole bunch of things that lined up, including Kanye being a maniac and including all these different things that brought our awareness to different levels and created this like just extraordinary thing. I'm wearing a U2 shirt today. Very similar, like U2 was a slow burn. They grew their 1,000 fans in their home country. They then spread slowly across the ocean. Then they, worked real hard to tackle America and on and on and on. The product was great, but there's tons of great product, like tons. Like,
Yep.
like I'm a super fan of music, and I'm so easily entertained at the coffee shop by the person playing the guitar. It's beautiful. So it's a really interesting thing that I see. So in your world with the band, where you're the band leader and you guys are out doing it, I guess I got a couple questions. I know in some instances the studio musicians are different than the musicians that go on tour.
Yeah.
Are you active in both?
I am active in both. And that is like the kind of distinct separation is more so found in the much, much larger markets, Nashville, Austin, LA, Texas. Whereas in Canada, because of there's almost the perfect amount of each available, either in the studio scene or in the live scene, depending on how you position yourself, where you can quite easily facilitate both. If you're in Nashville, where there's 100 times the amount of music being recorded, then it makes a lot more sense to just stay home, go to the studio every day, record music every day. But I mean, I'm a consistent kind of mainstay on the Calgary session scene, and it's expanding with remote work now, where I'm tracking for producers all across Canada. But it's not a full-time job. It can't be in Canada. And so all of the Canadian go-to session players, they have an act that they go out and tour with as well.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I, to be honest, would assume that being a utility player that can do both flexes your artistic ability. What you do in the studio sometimes can't be reproduced live. Like that, you have to do things slightly different live because you don't have as many overlays on tracks and as many different things and not necessarily in country, but I think in a lot of other stuff, music barely is reproducible live in a lot of instances. Like they're playing tracks with people then playing live. Where everything that I've ever seen you guys do, there's no backing track of anything that I've ever noticed. It's literally people with instruments that go out and literally crush it. In fact, no one knows except for the 300 people that were at my wife's birthday party. You helped me arrange a band for out at my birthday party, a young guy, Ben Chase, and he was amazing. And he came loaded. So he came loaded with like an unreal list of performers, like CCMA winners, basically across the board, world champion fiddler. Like it was nuts. And with nothing but some mics and their music, my back part of my ranch was like lit up as a concert. It was like, it's this really magical thing, which is like, it's so cool. And it was flawless. Like it was perfect. We couldn't get a better, unless maybe we stuck you in a bass. We couldn't have got it better. Like it was crazy. And so I just like, there's something about that. Like there's something about that live thing that's amazing. And their ability to reproduce.
Especially when you are dealing with artists who aren't running a bunch of tracks. Like I honestly, no slag on anybody who does. It's very, very common. And it can add a lot to a show. However, one of the things I appreciate about Brett's band, I know Ben, I don't think really runs much for tracks at this point anyways, is it allows artists to essentially respond to whatever's happening in the moment and make changes on the fly to just like, A, make every show unique to the listeners that are there, but B, tailor every moment to the type of energy that's kind of being cultivated in the room. Every night is different. With Brett in particular, like, yeah, we go in with a set list. I don't think we've ever played a set list as it is. And we've never played the same show twice. And that's one of my favorite things about the gig, is because Brett's super aware of what people are responding to, what they're not responding to. And he's able to make on the fly decisions that are instantaneous, sometimes seconds before things happen. He just calls it into the mic, and we've all been in the band long enough. We know all the cues. We know where he's going with things. When he says a certain phrase, like, oh, we're going to extend this section, or we're going up, we're going down, whatever it happens to be. And that curates a product for the people in that room, in that space, that is specific to them. And that creates a kind of connection with the artist that I think just kind of regurgitating the same thing over and over again, no matter who you're in front of, just doesn't quite create. That's not to say I haven't seen great shows that are built on tracks. There are great shows that are built on tracks.
Absolutely, yeah.
But this is, to me, just kind of it's just one tiny level up from that.
Yeah, it's true performance. And again, I've got DJ buddies and stuff, and like, I respect their craft and everything they do with a large but. A voice and a mic and a hand and a guitar and sticks and drums. These things are like, they're so analog and they flow. And when you've like, I'm like trying to learn how to play. I've wrecked a finger. I'm trying to relearn how to play guitar left-handed. By the way, it's coming along. Nice. But to put that all together, hell, to even be able to play a guitar properly and or play guitar and sing, these like the mountains of skills that you need to develop to be able to do it and get timing right and do all these things. It's phenomenal. And then you layer on multiple musicians at the exact same time. And then you layer on someone in the front leading something and taking it slightly different than anyone expected that night, but everyone being able to react. You can see when it happens, and it's like, it's so stunningly artistic, right? Like, it's not like The Voice is about as karaoke-esque as you can get. Yeah, there's a live band, but they're playing like a really rigid line so that the voice can stand out. And that's expected. Yeah. But when you have real live musicians and the band is reacting to the fans, the everything, it's just like, it's this whole organic beast. And it's just like, it's so stunningly beautiful. Like, I love going to real performances. It's shocking.
Yeah. I mean, again, the more I think about it, just sitting here talking to you, like, I don't know if it's inherently better or worse. It's just different. And, whatever, let's take two different acts. So you've got the Bruce Springsteen special, which is like, hang on for dear life. No one on that stage has any idea what's about to happen. Mm-hmm. And it's cool because not only is the audience there to listen to Bruce, but Bruce is there to listen to the audience. It becomes this two-way street, and it's more of a conversation. It's really, really cool. But I mean, one of my favorite shows ever was going to see Muse, which is obviously just, it's a very scripted thing. Nothing's changing night in and night out, but they found other ways to be incredibly engaging. And so it's, I don't want to take anything away from the acts that are running off of a script. It's a lot of these scripts are very well thought out and meticulously crafted and well rehearsed. But I'm with you. There's something really special about, I guess, like I said, it being a bit of a conversation. It's the artist also listening to the crowd and responding in kind, and it's more conversational. I'm here to serve you, and what can I do to make your night extra special, you know?
Yeah, dude, it's beautiful. By the way, Muse is in my top 3 concerts all time. I saw him in Vegas, and it was like,
It's next level, man.
oh, wow.
Yeah,
Like
incredible.
it literally changed the way I listened to music. And when I first got my first few sets of in-ears from Simon and Plunge, the very first music I went to, without a shadow of a doubt, was Muse. Because there's depth and there's volume in the sound, and it's just like, it's a production beyond production. It's like you need to be, you're in it, and it's wild. So just another little secret nugget of why we are buddies now, because I did not know that from you, and now you know it from me.
From brand development to simple market executions, 54 Blue helps brands of all sizes grow with sustainability in mind. Their full-stack range of services include print, fabrication, design, web, interactive, content marketing, brand consulting, creative strategy, and more. Join some of the world's largest brands and lean on 54 Blue for your next go-to-market. Visit 54blue.com for more information.
Okay, so as a musician, you're ebbing and flowing and doing this. As a producer, you do different stuff, because you are, I would assume, sometimes producer and performing, and you would do your tracks and move through and do production. But your innate ability to understand what's good, how things sound, the balance of all the music, all the different things that a producer would have to do. And I think I would know like just the tiniest little level of that. When you're producing someone else's music, what's in your head as far as like how to take a really great piece of work and hopefully make it the brass ring in their career that is now a thing that people are trying to grab onto? It's a beautiful piece of work. Where does it's all art, but there's a chunk of business in there too, where you're like, there's like trends that may need to be followed. There's, that kind of stuff. How do you balance that out?
Yeah. So I would actually push back a little bit on the trends that need to be followed thing. And what I mean by that is, by the time you've heard something on the radio, it's probably too late to chase it.
Sure.
And so, there's trends in terms of like general quality that's expected if it's going to be something that's going to commercial radio. However, the most important thing to me, by far, it's not even close. There's nothing else that matters more than this. And we will spend copious amount of time in conversation with the artist, is trying to understand the message, what they're trying to say with this song, and who they are as an artist, their identity, what's important to them, what's their mission with this music. And then my job as a producer simply becomes doing everything in my power to amplify the message and getting out of the way. There's a lot of producers out there that have very signature sounds. And that's one method is, I want to integrate this producer sound into my music because I like it. Great. That's a great path to take. In my case, if you're going to come and work with me, it's because I want to get out of the way, not infuse my own preferences, but obviously take my experience in arranging and building parts and making things fit together and creating something that sonically is pleasing and impactful. But other than that, those are all technical things. Artistically, it's who are you, what are you trying to say, and how can I shine a spotlight on that?
And I'm assuming I'm a really emotional human, and music evokes like emotion in me insanely. It's one media that does it crazy. I'm assuming in their messaging, a huge component is that it's like, what emotion are you trying to extend with the composition, with the words, with everything? I'm assuming that's a huge part of it, which would be probably a massive part of the conversation.
It's huge. Yeah. And that's something that I discuss with every artist before we go in is what are you really trying to say? And what are you trying to accomplish here? Because it's going to impact the decisions I make if their ultimate goal is to be commercially successful. But what's interesting is that's not always the goal, believe it or not.
Mm.
Some people have had songs in their head their entire lives, and life happened and they had kids and they went and got a full-time professional career somewhere, and these songs just stayed stuck in their head for 40 years. And now the kids have moved out. They're doing great, have a little bit more time than they've had, and they just want to record some songs that becomes part of their legacy.
Mm.
And it's going to be one of those things where, the grandkids one day come across this CD, if they even know what that is at the time, of Grandpa Joe's songs that, oh, this is part of who he was. This is part of his legacy. This is something he had to say. And to me, I don't think one thing is more beautiful than the other. Like, that to me is just as good a reason to create music as anything.
To me, that's actually probably the purest reason to do it. Like, that's so pure. Like, take all the economics away. Who cares if we sell one? Who cares?
Yeah,
it's a diary, it's a journal, it's a whatever, just in musical form, and the person needs to get it out or go crazy, basically.
Yeah.
Which I think is super cool, like really, really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And it adds dimension and depth to people and adds to their humanity. Like, this is part of their story now. And it's, man, the ultimate goal here is to create a song where people listen to it and they understand you better. They know more about who you are. And that song has added depth to you as a person, as a human being, just by someone having listened to it. You can make some pretty strong assumptions about who Alanis Morissette was and where she was at the time when you go listen to Jagged Little Pill.
Yeah.
And there's a million examples of that. And that to me is that's the goal. That's what we're here for. Yeah.
It's a pure snapshot of her psyche in a really clear, angsty point in poor Alanis's life.
Totally.
Very good and well done. And it's the same with all of it. Like, you go through any of the classic stuff, minus maybe Led Zeppelin, because it's really fantasy all the way from start to finish. But the Stones, the Beatles, the Who, all of these classic-y, really, country music is just like riddled with it. It's the truck, the dog, the wife. It's just like people telling their stories about their existence in just a completely beautiful way.
Mm-hmm.
But I love seeing that story. And some of them just are so timeless. Like, they're just literally timeless things that exist and mean something slightly different to everyone else. Lots of artists seem to push back about giving really clear definitions of what a song means, because they're like, it means what it means to you. Like, it doesn't matter what it means to me. What does it say to you? Which is a kind of a beautiful thing.
And it makes you feel something.
Yeah, it's huge.
That's what it comes down to. Do you feel something? I mean, people ask Kurt Cobain what his songs meant, and he didn't even know.
No.
He's like, I just put words together that I thought sounded good, but at the end of the day, there was a soul in those recordings. There was a fire to them that made people feel something. It was impactful. So yeah, like the story, I mean, country music tells the story better than any other genre. And I love that about country music, but, a story with no heart. Is anyone really interested in listening to that? It's still got to make you feel something.
Yeah. Even if it's just Kid Rock telling you should be partying down by the beach, it's a great story.
Totally.
Right.
And he means it.
Yeah. Go America. Like, literally, like, I love it. And I love, there's things like that. Like, doesn't always have to be sad, doesn't always have to be happy. Just needs to generally be a great story that actually cuts through and the person means it for whatever reason. And it's a really interesting thing. And it's unlike anything else that I've ever seen. It's so dynamic. Music is like in my opinion, the most superior form of art that exists. It's like, and then live performance being a layer on top of that just allows you then to see how organically built this wall of sound is, or, you know, the subtle parts, and like, it's just a completely different thing. So God bless all of you. If I could be, my fantasy is in my world, and I define dreams and fantasies slightly different. Dreams are things that I can get at and I can work towards really easy. Fantasies sometimes might be dangerous, and there's unicorns and, you know, crazy stuff happens. But in fantasies, I'm a musician. And I don't know the skill to do it. Not now, although I continue to build it as I go. But it's like, it's such a pure art form. It's crazy. It's just for you. I'm never happier than when I'm just sitting with my guitar in my office, relearning chords with my other hand. Like, it's endlessly entertaining, and it's beautiful. And
absolutely.
So anyways, that's music. I love it. So as a producer and as a person who also is a partner in a business that does it. And hold on. Where is it? So I first came in contact with Simon Fisk. Simon is an audiologist. Is that correct?
He is actually not a registered audiologist. He worked in the world of audiology for a very long time and was kind of an audiology tech, would probably be a more accurate way of describing it.
Someone should give him a honorary, like, master's degree in it. Like, there's zero doubt. So this is one of the first things he ever made me. And it's a perfectly custom molded, beautiful in-ear performance, you know, performers in ear. And it was molded very specifically for my ear. It's got multiple drivers. This is like the Rolls Royce of in-ear monitors. This is what the highest end performers covet and carry around in little cases that look just like this. And when they don't have it, they spaz out because they need it so bad, and it becomes an issue, I'm going to assume, all the time. And when they're not working on stage, you can see that they're not working, and you can hear it. And I'd like you to explain the product. And now I'm wearing your new ones, where you're heavily involved, and that's the Unity. And it's a universal fit version of it, which has its own whole thing that I want to talk to you about. How do you get even a better, like, I like the fit of my Unities better than I like the fit of my custom in-ears. I find my custom in-ears, if I try to sing or talk with them, I find it changes my jaw position slightly, and I have to get used to it through a little period, and then they're perfect and they work amazing. I completely get it. But there is like a little bit of an adaptation period with it that I found, where the Unity's not at all. I put them in and like, they're perfect. So you're wearing a pair of Apple AirPods. I own all sorts of Apple AirPods. I love them. It's what I mountain bike in. It's what I use all the time. It's a great product for what it is. However, it's a completely different product. Can you explain the difference between the two and like third grade level? Because this is people learning new stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially a very different type of utility between the two products. You're using the two of them for very different reasons. The reason I have these in my ear for this conversation is because they have a built-in microphone, whereas a set of IEMs would never have a microphone in them. And it's a good microphone. It's also got the transparency mode, which allows me to feel a little bit more natural in the space when we're conversing. I like that. And so what's different about this, though, is from a sonic standpoint, it is very much tailored for, I'm trying to think how to describe it, consumer grade sound, consumer grade sonic experience, which is very different from that kind of prosumer or even completely professional type of sound that people who are working on stage need in order to operate effectively. There's a very different, and you've got both products. You know that they throw completely different types of sound at you, and there's a reason for that. What sounds generally pleasant for your typical consumer who just wants to sit down on the train on the way to work in the morning and listen to their favorite song, like these they'll sound smooth, they'll sound fun. The AirPods will sound good. However, in the same way that the speakers that you put in your living room to watch a movie are tuned completely differently from the speakers that are sitting in a studio that an engineer is working on, so too are in-ear monitors relative to a consumer-grade headphone. And there's very different information that needs to be conveyed that these simply would not be able to convey.
Okay.
The thing about in-ear monitors is they need to be clinically accurate and throw detail and information across the entire spectrum. There are frequencies that are actually quite unpleasant naturally to listen to. And so a lot of consumer grade products are actually designed to cut out unpleasant frequencies right at the source. Doesn't matter if those frequencies are there or not, they will be cut out for you. You will never hear them. So everything sounds nice and smooth and pleasant. But as a musician or as a music engineer or an audio tech, you actually need to hear those frequencies and know if they exist and have them be replicated by the product that you're listening to so that you can deal with them appropriately. That you actually know what things sound like. Not a version, a smoothed out version of what they sound like, what they actually sound like. And so IEMs are tuned to give you that kind of reference style quality, which can be a dangerous thing. Because now if you are listening to a mix that isn't that great or has a ton of harsh frequencies in it, and you throw in your monitors, they're there. And you'll know they're there. For the first time, having put anything in your ears, you're going to hear things that actually can come across as quite harsh. But then, if you put in your monitors and listen to a great mix, something that sounds incredible, it is an experience unlike anything you've ever heard before. Mm-hmm. It is submersive, intimate, extravagant. It is emotional. It's like hearing your favorite tunes for the first time. It's addictive, man. Once you hear that level of detail, it sounds like you're in the studio with Bob Dylan, and you hear his lips smacking, and you hear the fingers on the guitar and all the resonant frequencies, and then you hear the space, and you get that sound stage. Man, there's nothing like it. It is a beautiful thing.
Does your brand need some help in the trade marketing department? Manage your sales tools with Regulator's easy-to-use features. Whether it's fixtures or displays, POP, custom art or promo products, you can submit single or bulk orders for all your locations within minutes, using a simple, streamlined process. Deliver content, manage your budget and view the market, all from the palm of your hand. Move up to 10 times faster than your competitors and capture all the opportunities that put your brand on top. Visit brandregulator.com for more information.
The only thing I can think of is when I first was exposed to them, and it was really weird because I had to go through the whole process of molding and all these things to even get to that process, and they're thousands of dollars, like thousands and thousands of dollars. I was like, all right, Simon, I'll trade you a bunch of work for some in-ears. It was beautiful. Sure, why not? And the space, the thing that always blows me away is one, the details, like you said, to hear the, like, not just the really obvious slide of the finger up the guitar, but like you can actually hear the finger of this, and you can hear, if you're really good, you can hear everything, every stray anything. Did he hit the string that was not supposed to be hit? You can pick these things up. It gets buried in any other form. Not with in-ears. With in-ears, you're like, if you haven't had the chance to experience, it's trippy because you hear sound from all around your head. You hear it 15 feet, 30 feet behind you, like a foot in front of you, and 100 feet away from you, in front of you, and all over the sides. And your brain ignites. Like, it's like this completely different thing. And I've tried to explain it to people, and I could never do it. And my friends would try to jam these in their ears, and they're like, I don't know, dude, they don't sound that good. It's like, no, it's because they don't fit. And they're like, they're bullshit. My AirPods are great. And I'm like, literally, this is completely different. But the unities are really cool because you can just jam these in your ear. Like you got to change the tips around maybe for a little bit of comfort and to get a little bit better of a seal. But you guys have done technically a really amazing job. So let's just go back to the sound for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
So Apple, like the speakers, for lack of a better word, inside those headphones that you're wearing right now are basically taking sound from across an entire band of frequencies, jamming it through one speaker, and they sort of use algorithms to smooth it out. So it just comes out like nice. You can hear the highs, you can hear the lows. In most consumer stuff, they just take the bass and shoot it through the roof because that's kind of on trend. Although albeit annoying in a lot of circumstances. Everybody turn the bass down slightly and listen to the rest of the music. You'll hear so much more, including bass guitar, which is like what you do. If your bass is through the roof, it's just all you're hearing is this pounding beat all the time. And when you drop it down, it's like, oh, there's all sorts of stuff happening back here that you never hear. So I challenge everyone, just maybe back that down just a bit. It's a better experience. So in the ones I'm wearing and in my custom ones, there's not a single speaker. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes on in there. Can you explain sort of some of the tech?
Yeah. So what's used in your monitors generally, now there are exceptions to this, and we've even played around with kind of combining different tech. But the most common type of speaker used in in-ear monitors are called balanced armatures. And the balanced armature was originally designed to be used in hearing aids. But there are several companies and they make hundreds of different models of balanced armatures. They're all tuned slightly differently and they throw different frequencies. And where you can create magic is, well, after a lot of experimentation, figuring out which balanced armatures are throwing what types of frequencies and then combining them to create, a picture across the spectrum that is balanced. And the thing about armatures is that the frequencies, and this is a good and a bad thing. So they have what's called a very fast transient. The frequencies, they move quickly and they hit hard and they have a lot of texture to them. They're not smooth. They're not papery. They hit. And that can be a bad thing because if you haven't tuned your IEMs well, they hit too hard. They get harsh really quickly. There's too much high end. They get imbalanced. It can be quite a painful experience. If you tune balanced armatures well, then you get this level of texture and immediacy and accuracy and detail that really any other type of speaker can't really replicate. It is exclusive to balanced armatures. And so they, when weaponized properly, are what create kind of the signature sound of an IEM.
Yeah, it's impressive. The thing that I absolutely adore about it is if you want to go into a song that you know really well, that you know as a complete composition, but you're like, I really wonder what the guitar on its own is really doing. You can go in, you can find the guitar sound in your head because it exists in space now, in three-dimensional space inside your head, which is such a bizarre concept. And I can then just focus on that three-dimensional space and listen to the guitar track all the way through. And there's no way to do it when the entire thing is being presented as a wall. It always amazes me when three guys show up on stage and you just get blasted with like just such full everything. And it's like, I don't understand how it's done. The experience between those three guys, when you listen to them through the in-ears, is completely different because you're just hearing the individual stuff and it cleans it up and you can actually hear each individual thing so much better, which obviously makes sense because I'm assuming from why performers lose their mind when their in-ears aren't working is, I'm assuming, and tell me if I'm wrong, you lose sense of timing because you're hearing now echoes within the space. You're hearing the fans like way louder than anything you need. You're hearing the wall of sound. You can't hear your particular instrument and what you're trying to do, whether it's singing or bass or drum or whatever. You need to be able to hear what you're actually doing, probably at a slightly, like, would you, for your bass, will you have your in-ears turned up slightly more for your instrument, or do you want to hear the mix completely neutral across all instruments and you'll pull out your bass sound in your head?
Depends on, I mean, that answer is going to be different for everybody. There's really no one way to mix that's proper. For me personally, I do not like to have my own instrument screaming in my in-ears and have it be sitting like, high above everything else that's going on. I want to be inside the music so that I can properly listen and respond to all the things that are happening around me, and know how my instrument is affecting those around me by being, very attentive to and having the detail of what the guitar player is doing, what the keys player is doing. So I try and have a mix that is, kind of close to how you might expect a record to sound, where nothing's really jumping out. And what the biggest difference between my in-ear mix and what you might expect from a record is I don't have the vocals that loud in my in-ears that you might, that you'd hear on an album. But the vocals are kind of sitting kind of where everything else is, but everything's fairly even and contained. And then maybe I'll bump myself a dB or two above that if I need a little bit extra detail. But it kind of depends on the room and the space and all sorts of things.
For that makes sense to me, because if you pull your stuff up too high, you'll start playing softer, and there is differences between soft and hard, strumming and whatever. It's really obvious with vocals because you just volume up. So that to me makes sense. As a singer, I have zero, I love singing, and it's a thing. I've never sung with in-ears, but I'm assuming that they need, they're listening for pitchiness and volume control. They'd have to be. They'd be fairly focused on, there's all the rest of it, the timing, all the stuff. However, you can instantly tell when someone's in-ears fail because they lose control sometimes of their pitchiness if they're not really, really, really tuned on just how their voice sounds, if they can't even properly hear themselves, or they'll instantly plug an ear and use a different auditory path, more bone conduction, and go, okay, I know my bone conduction level of pitch control. But would it be the same for that? Same with the drummers and stuff? Does everybody kind of is there different rules for the different people that do this? I find this fascinating.
I wouldn't say there's universal hard and fast rules for anybody. Everybody is pretty unique in what they're hoping for an in-ear mix that works for them. A couple of consistencies we found is drummers of all musicians like to have the most low end available, and they kind of have the deepest low end replication from their IEMs. I think a huge part of it is just feeling connected to their kick drum. And otherwise, you had already touched on the vocal thing, I think everybody has very differing preferences. And that's part of, that's one of the things we kept in mind when we were designing a kind of a sonic profile for the Unity IEMs, is that we want to create something that is, sure, out of the box, it sounds good, it sounds pleasant, it's usable out of the box, no matter who you are and what you want your in-ears to sound like. But at the end of the day, we want something that is generally quite neutral. So knowing that everyone's just going to carve it up the way they want to hear it anyways. And so what's interesting is when I was doing some market research for the product and I was talking to people, just interviewing people, over and over again about what's important to you in an in-ear monitor. What are you looking for? What's driving your buying decisions? This was fascinating to me. Not a single person at any point, not even one time, nobody ever said the sound.
That's great.
That's fascinating because
they better be pink. But sound doesn't matter.
It was all sorts of things, man, but it was never sound. And of course, when we're R&Ding these things, the first thing we're thinking of is like, how do we make them sound incredible? Well, there's two things to me, two marks you want to hit when you're crafting the sound with an IEM. One of them, and you've touched on it and how important it is the widest possible soundstage, so that you can get that extreme separation where something is 10 feet behind you and the other thing's way up there and something's way down below you, and you feel completely immersed and surrounded by the music. There are ways you can create that and ways you can destroy that when you're designing an IEM. So that's one thing, because no matter how you set the levels at the monitoring console in your mix, you can't recreate soundstage. Either it's inherent in the IEM or it isn't. So goal one, widest possible soundstage. And then like goal number two, well, I mean, there's actually more than two, so I'm lying. But soundstage is definitely number one. Goal number two is not to overemphasize anything too hard out of the box, because then it only becomes usable for certain people and not everybody. And we're creating a universal in-ear monitor here. Obviously, as a universal product, everyone needs to have kind of a fair level playing field when they put these in their ears, knowing that this is usable immediately for them. And it'll be fairly close to what they want to hear. So we're not creating these massive low-end bumps. We're not creating these, huge gaps in the mids to smooth things out. We're not over accentuating the high end. We're actually trying to create a fairly neutral sonic experience. So no matter who you are, you toss them in, they're usable out of the box.
But to your point before, that's what they actually have to be, because are they not going to layer in effects and layer in
100%?
They're like, hey, the drummer's like, I need to hear my kick better, and yeah, no problem. They just hit a dial and turn the kick up for them. It's like, is that good? Yep, bingo. And
that's the thing, man. Like it's we've had people put them in their ears and give us feedback, going like, I don't know, I like a little bit more low end. Well, hang on here. The low end that is kind of the out-of-the-box sound of these is how we've tuned it to be universally usable. However, that doesn't mean that the drivers that are in there can't replicate the frequencies you're after. Put them in your ears, ask the monitor tech for more 60 hertz or more 50 hertz, a boost there, and they will replicate those frequencies beautifully, and you'll get all the low end you could ever want. Just because they're tuned like that out of the box doesn't mean you can't do whatever you want to the sound. And we know people are going to do whatever they want to the sound.
Yeah.
So why have our stake in the ground be they sound like this? Because nobody sounds one way. There's no one way to describe a sound that actually describes everybody and what they want to hear. So to us, from an R&D standpoint, like, I think getting too caught up on what they sound like when you just plug them into a phone and listen to your favorite song is that's not the most important thing. That shouldn't actually be where our focus is, especially after doing some market research. What really puts these over the top more than anything is the fit. The fit is everything. You'd mentioned those are more comfortable than your customs. And they probably seal better than your customs.
They do.
And that is where the actual magic is with that product. And that is something that has not existed in the universal IEM space before.
Yeah,
and
it's cool.
Yeah. I mean, that was a lesson that we learned very early on in making custom IEMs, is that there are a lot of things about fit that are completely out of our control and that are actually really hard to get right at the beginning of the process. You remember getting impressions made of your inner ears and how they had to, stick that little foam thing way down your canal and then fill your ear canals with all this material, and then it hardens and you've got your impression, and then you send that to your IEM manufacturer and then they'll make you your custom IEM. People have no idea how hard it is to get that process right and how rare it is for it to go entirely correctly to the point where you will have a perfect fitting IEM.
Yeah.
Is your jaw in the right position? Is it properly relaxed? Are you using a bite block or are you not using a bite block? Some companies say you should. We say you shouldn't. But there's science on both sides. If you are using a bite block, is it the right size and density? Have you gone swimming recently? Have you been on an airplane recently and undergone massive pressure changes? Have you had a cold or a flu recently? Have you taken any acetaminophen or ibuprofen lately? How are your general inflammation levels? All of these things and more affect the shape and size of your ear canals. And so you go to get impressions made of your ear canal, and it is a snapshot of that exact time and the way your body is in that exact moment, which could change in 5 days. And so you've got these impressions, and you get your custom in-ear monitors that you spend $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 on that hopefully fit.
Yeah, but
probably won't. And it's not actually the fault of the manufacturers. This all starts with the impressions that are made. And it's not even really the fault of the audiologists. It's your own physiology. And there's things that audiologists can do to get it more wrong, that's for sure, or more right. But most audiologists actually take impressions for hearing aids, not in-ear monitors. So they don't even really know what they truly need to focus on to get the best possible outcome. And so we're building all these in-ear monitors, these custom ones, using people's impressions that they send to us. And what we get is what we get. So here's the impression you sent us. Now we'll scan it. We'll do a 3D scan. We'll build out the mold. And here it is. Well, these aren't fitting. Yeah. Because most of them don't really fit perfectly. And even if they do, here's the scary part. So you're one of the lucky people. Your body is in perfect form for when you get your impressions done. Your audiologist has done this a million times. They take the perfect impression. You get your custom in-ear monitors built, you put them in. Wow, they're comfortable. They seal. When I move my jaw and I sing and I smile on stage, they stay isolated. The seal doesn't break. Everything's perfect for now. But your ears are always changing.
Yeah.
From the day you're born to the day you die, internally and externally, the structure is always changing. And you can speed that up or slow the process down as well. But are you losing a bunch of weight or gaining a bunch of weight? And again, all these things that I mentioned before, they all apply. And so you'll have a perfect fitting IEM for a bit. In some cases, it's 3 years, 5 years. In some cases, it's 18 months. And now they don't fit anymore. So what, are you going to go through this whole process again and spend another $3,000 getting another set that'll fit for 3 years if you're lucky? And this was a problem that Simon and I were building these things over and over again, going man, why is there not why has nobody done anything about this?
Yeah.
There's all these universal fit products that are attempting to address that problem. But the issue there is all the manufacturing methods that are being used have to create a product where the canal comes off the shell at a right angle, 90 degrees. But there are no 90-degree angles in the ear. It goes kind of down, turns a corner, goes back up your head.
Yeah.
Where's the 90-degree angle in that? And so all these universal fit products out there are uncomfortable. They don't seal correctly. That it's just
mostly because they have to seal at the very start, right? Basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, kind of. There's just not an organic shape to them that actually moves with your ear canal. You go.
Here's an interesting. That's what the inside of my ear looked like 4 years ago. It was different now. Yeah. These don't fit as good now, for sure.
Yeah.
We're not here for the high rollers, snooty wine critics, or long-haul collectors, but we do think it's about time wine cellars turned into swoon-worthy works of art. Our experienced designers will bring your dream wine cellar to life, fitting any sized space and aesthetic requirements in your home. Our craftsmen carefully hand-build your cellar to give you a wine storage space that really feels like you. Visit themoderncellar.com for more information.
When you guys went into this, you guys also created some new tech. You're 3D printing these. They're amazing. They're beautiful. They have a great feel and a nice texture. The texture on them, I find, helps them stay in my ear a little bit better. And it also seems somehow to let the seal not break quite as easy as the perfectly smooth ones. When the perfectly smooth in-ears that I had, when the seal would break, it would be and I would it's like when your ears are plugged in, it pops. It's really awkward. with this tech, you guys also like, you have the outer shape, which is really crucial. The inner shape of these is even more crucial. And with how you guys are building these, and thankfully built in Canada and built with love, right there, built with Canada, built with love. These aren't built in Asia. These are crafted beautifully in Canada, and you guys assemble each and test each and every one. The 3D printing, I won't get into the tech because you guys have some proprietary stuff there, but you guys did a ton of work making the inside of the shell work with it as well, which if anyone doesn't understand how molded products work is you get one or the other. You get the outside to work, but the inside doesn't work great, which means then you need to mold an inner piece and then insert it to get the shapes that you need inside sometimes, and it's awkward. You can pour resins and do different things. But with 3D printing, whether it's 3D printed houses, little widgets, fixing things around your house, 3D printing allows you to do everything differently because it allows you to do intricate outside and inside at the exact same time. When you and Simon were balancing this, I'm assuming a large part of the effort went to the external fit, and you guys already knew what the perfect inside shape was. Was it along that path? And then you knew that with 3D printing, you guys could actually, with a very high end 3D printing, this isn't something you can just go crack off on your own printer, but the tech and the crafting of the inner shell, because there's resonating that would happen within this thing. It's all really important. Like, I don't think people would give you guys enough credit for how insane as a product this is. Like,
yeah. So the internal design, I don't know if I'd say it was more challenging or less than the external design, because getting that fit right was incredibly challenging. But then, now you've got the inside of the shell where you've got to fit the types of components that you want in a very small space. But more importantly than that, one, you can't just drop components into these IEMs anywhere and have them fire towards the end of the canal and have that work out well for you.
I'm sure
you need to tune that space. And one of the shortcuts that really pretty much every other IEM manufacturer utilizes is something called a dampener. And so that's something that is inserted into a canal that the sound goes through, where it targets treble frequencies and eliminates them. Now, the problem with those is it doesn't always just target one specific frequency. It really puts a blanket over everything, even though it is trying to focus on one. Two, the more dampeners you use, the more it takes that expansive soundscape that you're used to experiencing and it pulls it in and it narrows it. And so we wanted to create a damperless design. However, now you are trying to find other more natural ways to address these problem frequencies. And so it's about the positioning of the driver inside of that shell and the canal length and the canal shape, and then creating an acoustic mass at the end of the canal right before it hits your ear where the sound can fire into that space and amalgamate and all these, and tuning that acoustic mass so that it properly addresses certain parts of the frequencies. And we're talking about a millimeter would be a real nice thing to work with. It's a fraction of a millimeter.
Yeah.
And so moving components around and trying different components. And then of course, all these little tiny fractional adjustments in the canal shape and size and in that acoustic mass at the canal, all these things were affecting the sound dramatically. So we're building model after model after model and tweaking over and over and over again to actually use the space itself to tune the drivers so that we didn't have to use dampeners. And this is a true tubeless, damperless design, which utilizes balanced armatures at their highest and best potential. And then furthermore, we also needed to create a product that could be easily replicated because structuring the inner components and just putting it all together can be very complex. It's all done under a microscope. and very hard to do and very hard to train people to do. And so if we wanted to create a product that was scalable, like truly scalable, it couldn't just be Simon and his infinite expertise is the only one who's capable of putting these things together. We had to create an internal structure that with a little bit of training, someone else could put these together as well. And that we could, like really increase our output on demand. And so that was another thing we had to keep in mind. So that like the engineering that went into this is just absolutely bonkers. It took years, 2.5 years really, to get the internal, external structures right.
Yeah, it's I don't even know how much these are. How much are these at retail?
$8.99.
Okay. For under $1,000, they're fucking mind blowing. Like, and if you can afford, if you're just a person who loves music and you've got a nice record player and a proper amp, or you're a person who doesn't care about the warmth of vinyl, but just wants to listen to it digitally, but you really want to hear your favorite song in a new, completely fresh way. This is the thing. It's under $1,000. I've got it at my house. I've got my record player and I've got about 5 headphone amps, and I found one that works for me, because they're all, pardon my language, fucking with frequency in one way or another. Yeah. And I'm like, I plug into it. I'm like, nope. I don't even send them back. I just like, oh, it's just another Amazon thing that's sitting in my pile of stuff that I don't use. And I'm like, oh, I'll use it one day. But that setup is insane. And I can sit there with a glass of wine, and listen to an album in a completely different way. And completely like, it is just like, it's so different. Mm-hmm. So different. So I highly recommend going to plunge.ca, I think it is, plungeaudio.com, and picking a set of these up if you can afford it. And if you're one of my very, very good friends, over the next few years, I might gift you a pair if I know how much you love music. If you don't love music, I'm not giving them to you because they're too expensive and you'll never appreciate it. But if you're a music lover, my buddy Nick Woodhouse loves music. For him to go back through the tragically hip world that he loves would be complete. He would cry. I guarantee you. He would sit there and he would cry with all the depth, and because it's a completely new experience. And people out of our car stereo with an engine running is like literally the worst place ever to listen to music. It's fun. It's great. It's entertaining, but like, it's all getting covered up and messed up and stuff. And so, I'm out at my place, you were there, I got Sonos stereo stuff everywhere. That's like slightly better than a car stereo. It's great because I can play it everywhere and I can run it off my phone and it's great. I can sing along to it and it's fine. But when I really, really, really want to sit down and be like, okay, I want to hear this. There's one thing. That's it. It's not my,
absolutely.
I wanted to bring it up for those that are out there. Your earphones have noise canceling. What these have is called, I think you guys call it noise rejection, is what in-ears call it.
Attenuation.
There we go. Yep. And it's the ability of the fit to block the external noise, not an algorithm counteracting the noise. And I believe noise canceling sooner or later is going to be proven to probably not be the greatest thing in the world for our ears, because that's
already been proven.
Stuff. Has it?
Yeah.
Yeah. It freaks me out. Although on my tractor, I've got a couple sets of like Bose big earmuffs, and I'll use it there because I assume it's much better than sitting on top of something that's like a bajillion decibels going all day. So like, what's the best of the two worlds? It's just such a cool space and I love it. And I really think that people would love to do it and hear these things. So hopefully your guys' messaging gets better.
And I love seeing,
it doesn't get better, but gets out and your sales grow and grow because it's
For sure,
Fucking
man.
dope.
There's nothing I love more than seeing the look on people's faces when they put them in their ears for the first time and they listen to their favorite song. And it's the smiles, the tears we've seen of people
Dude.
hearing music first. It feels like the first time. And then then the addiction begins, where now you got to hear all your other favorite songs with these things and see what you've been missing your entire life.
Yeah, I've jumped down that rabbit hole, and hours later looked around and I have every record that I've ever liked laid out around me. And I've gone through 2 bottles of wine and I'm like, oh, that was a 5-hour period I didn't expect to burn through listening to music, but it's like, it is so good. I love it. I think the product you guys are building is amazing. Just to touch on, if you got a minute or two left, just to touch on the marketing of this. You guys are marketing a product to professionals and high-end audiophiles. What's the secret and the sauce of getting a hold of those people? Because you're fighting some people who are already completely dedicated to this being the number one solution. If it's not custom, it's not for me. And I would assume there's a lot of very spoiled high-end artists who are like, I only wear custom. And it's like,
yeah, totally.
But maybe the one day your customs don't work, you get a shot at these and you find out that maybe custom isn't the greatest. How do you guys extend that message? Like, how is that a thing, artist to artist, when you're dealing with people?
Well, I mean, the road thus far has been a lot of face-to-face and a lot of just word of mouth, people experiencing these things going, wow, like I didn't realize my customs sucked until I tried these. And so experiencing it is a huge thing, but really one of the big pushes that we're going to be making from a marketing standpoint, and I believe that the term for it is getting into the thought leadership space. So we are going to create immense amounts of educational material that we are going to put out there in all sorts of formats, whether it be, a 30-minute video, a 6-minute kind of documentary style thing, clips that just get blasted out onto every platform you can imagine, where we really start to challenge some of the long held beliefs about IEMs, especially custom IEMs. People have been badly duped by the industry. It perpetuates hype, unlike any other industry I've ever seen, where there's product ladders being created where there's no discernible differences from one product to another in terms of what your end user experience is going to look like, except one is $1,000 more than the other one. And there's all these games that this industry plays to try and make you believe that, customs are the only way to go. And that if you're a true professional, like you have to spend this much money, you have to get this tech, you have to get the latest and greatest in these 9 things. When in Simon and my experience, we've kind of come to determine actually that's bullshit. And you're being like, these companies are lying their way into your wallets. And because I'm a musician as well, because Simon is also a professional musician, like we truly, truly care about this community. I'm sick of seeing my colleagues get duped. I'm tired of seeing somebody spend $3,000 on a product that performs half as good as what you're wearing right now. That pisses me off because I've been duped by the industry before I met Simon. And then I met Simon, and then I joined this company, and we've created a product now that is truly a high utility, extreme value product that is built for the community that I'm a part of and that I really care about. So we want to educate people. And that's going to be one of the kind of core pillars of our marketing approach is thought leadership, challenging the norms, educating people, and trying to enlighten them as to why you've been why you need to start, I guess, changing your perspective and viewpoint on what's actually good in this space.
Yeah, to me, that makes perfect sense. It's fun because the fantasy version of this in my head is, and it's happened a little bit. Artist goes on stage, artists in ears fail. Someone hands them your Unity ones. They plug them in and they're like, oh, fuck, these are great. And that's happened. Like that's a story that's already happened multiple times. And, like the dream of this is, I'm going to see U2 at the Sphere on Friday, which I'm super psyched on.
Oh,
The dream
dude.
is Bono's in-ears fail and I throw a set on the deck for him and he plugs them in and he's like, hold on a second. These are amazing. That's not a path that's going to work. The education component of it's going to be huge, but there's no, I'm a firm believer that overpaying for things is stupid, and good can just be good at a value. Value is not the value in these is insane. The value is so much higher, pardon me, Simon, than these beautiful crafted ones.
He would agree with you.
Yeah. The value is they always fit. I've never plugged them in one day and been like, my ears feel weird. We're those for sure. The value is not an economic based thing. And so I think
it's simple, man.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure you've been to a restaurant before. You've been to a lot of restaurants where chefs are doing insane things with insane ingredients, and it creates, a cool, good dining experience. But you probably will never forget the time when a chef made something using 3 ingredients that you have in your own backyard and did it so beautifully that it truly kicked the shit out of every, wild recipe you've ever had in the past.
Yeah, dude.
And
that's 100% true.
Yeah, this is the equivalent to that in the IEM space. It's keeping it simple and using these ingredients to their highest and best potential. And that is something that is such a departure from the typical narrative and the messaging in the IEM space. So yeah, the education thing is going to be huge, but also people, they need to experience them. So, one of the stories you brought up about when it was the bass player from Mother, actually, whose in-ear monitors went down in the middle of the set. Their tech happened to have a set of Unities in his drawer. So he ran them out on stage to the bass player, tossed them in his ears in the middle of the song. He starts playing again, looks over at the tech, face lights up, and he just, what are these? Sounded better than anything he'd ever put in his ears before. And he's probably thinking, he spent $2,000 in the in-ears that went down. Well, these are less than half the price of that. And his mind was absolutely blown. But more importantly than that, the tech actually emailed us later that day. And he said, hey, guys, I just want to thank you. You made me look like a hero. It's like, okay, there's something we need to tap into as well, is connecting with techs. We've started we're calling it a tech associate program where we're essentially partnering with techs to give them this product to essentially prepare them for that exact scenario so that they always have something on hand. And then there's a kickback program as well where there's something in it for them for peddling the product. But where we want to enable techs, who are the true heartbeat of this industry anyways, to go out and be heroes.
Yeah, that's huge. And you see it all the time. People singing and pulling one of their in-ears out because something's not quite right, or they're not comfortable, or on and on and on and on. And in something where if you're standing in front of 15,000 people, you probably don't want to be worrying about what's in your ears.
Oh God, no.
That is
that should be the last thing on your mind.
It's the last thing.
Yeah.
It just needs to be there. It needs to work perfectly. There's no fooling around. I'm a mountain bike guy, and that. And I ride at an exceedingly fast level downhill. And there's things that you just can't worry about. There's things that have to be just your brakes are one of them, right? Your stem and your handlebars and some very specific thing, your tires. These things are you can't think about them while they have to work perfectly all the time in all of those scenarios. And if they don't, it's chaos. And no one wants to pay. I think my U2 tickets are $600 a shot, something like that. No one wants to pay $600 USD to go and see chaos because some small, very important, I mean, small in physical size thing just fails. And and then everything's off. and it's not nearly as good as it can be. The performer doesn't want it. No one wants that. So,
I mean, we'll all never forget the legendary Mariah Carey performance, Times Square. What was that, 2016? When it was a gong show. It was talked about for years. In fact, it's that performance is practically baked into her otherwise unbelievable legacy now. And what went wrong? Her in-ears weren't working. Man,
yeah, it's
the ramifications of having your in-ears not function properly are catastrophic, dude.
Yeah, I think if you're a rhythm guitarist and you got nothing else to do than hit rhythm guitar, you probably get away with it for the day, and you could probably keep up okay. But if you're trying to hit whistle note after whistle note after whistle note in front of everybody, if I'm correct, that was a Christmas performance, right? Am I right on?
I think it was New Year's Eve, Times Square, right?
New Year's Eve. There we go. Yeah, I remember it being cold. She can't hit that. There's no way. Like, she needs to be able to hear herself perfectly all the time. And she is magnificent. She is. I don't love her music, but she is magnificent what she can do with her instrument. But if she can't hear it, she's doomed, because she has to prepare for all these things all the way along the way. She has to hear herself perfect. So anyways, I think it's amazing. To everyone listening, we've touched on music, how to make it through music. We've touched on the technical bits of how you make a beautiful in-ear monitor. And I struggle not to call them headphones. I apologize, but I struggle with in-ear monitor. And we've learned a lot about the business in you. If you're a musician, go find your 1,000 fans and go. I'm a firm believer, as you are, that a single person can be, like, when you were young, did you think you were going to win awards for playing your bass? Was that like, you fantasized, but did you actually believe these things could become a reality, that you could actually live your life in multiple areas of the music business? You're an anomaly. You're the jack of all trades. You perform in it, you produce in it, you're producing equipment for it, and not putting your name on the equipment as far as producing it, but actually in the engineering component of doing this, and you're marketing it. You are the ultimate of being in the music industry, because you're on every single side of it, which I find really interesting. So, one, congrats, because not many people make that dream happen. So, buddy, good job. You do it with grace and with a kindness. And I don't know if people ever tell you that, but you're a very kind man. Thanks for your time today. If you had to give someone advice about, I got another thing that I dropped, and you can not do this if you want. But first off, if you give advice to a young musician or a young producer, what's the one thing?
Are we talking artistically or business wise?
Doesn't matter.
Actually, you know what? I'm just going to do something that applies to both here.
Okay.
I think the most important thing that somebody can bring to the table as either an artist or musician is to have a sound that is unique to you. Figure out what you're trying to say, and then how you can say it the most effectively. Be identifiable. That is something that is severely lacking, especially, as artists. I think there's a lot of artists that aren't identifiable, but as a music director, I've always got a kind of an ear to the ground for who the up and coming players are. I need to know what's going on in the scene, because I'm constantly putting bands together and subbing people in and out. And there's all sorts of reasons why I try and keep my finger on the pulse of up and coming musicians. And the most important thing, but one of the rarest things, is for somebody to perform and play and execute in a way that is signature to them, so that if I need that sound, either as a producer or as a musical director, I can only call them. I can call somebody else who can fake it and get a slightly worse version of that person, but I can't get their sound unless I call them. And that makes somebody incredibly valuable. And it's not to say everyone's going to like what you do, but the people that do, they can only call you. You want to talk about job security?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if that's a good usable sound and you found a way to adapt it into the environment you want to be in, you become irreplaceable.
Yeah,
be identifiable.
That's amazing. Like if you dig into people's like Slash, like I think Slash played on Thriller or Beat It or something for Michael Jackson as a studio musician, or like these people move back and forth. They don't even they just go and do it because they've just got such an unbelievable skill set that can be molded, but they also have this like intangible sound, a thing that no one can duplicate the edge from U2. He's like, there's a thing, like they had to swap out Larry Mullen because he's got bad elbows like me. He barely hit the drums anymore. And it's sad because the guy is good. He's a great drummer, but not quite there. Adam playing the bass, he's got his own thing. It's just, it's so definable against what it is. And you can pick it up in other music and stuff. So yeah, I think that's really a great piece of advice. Because the longest, like Dylan and his voice, Bob Dylan's voice, Johnny Cash's voice.
Absolutely.
They're just they're so shockingly original. Same with Radiohead and Tom. There's just these things are different.
And the same goes for the people behind the scenes that are helping create that music and bring it to life.
I would imagine,
There's a lot of things about those players that are highly identifiable to them, and that makes them valuable and irreplaceable.
Yeah, that's great. That's good advice too. Okay, there's a thing I do, and feel free to join in. I'm going to do it today because you're my friend. You already actually know this, but most people don't. It's a thing I do called Cool Confessional. And I believe that, I think you're a cool guy, but you're just a guy. And every person I meet, they have their persona, and then there's the actual human that exists behind it. And I've said it before, a naked man can't be pickpocketed. So I'm giving away all my secrets, because if there's nothing, there's nothing to bug me about if I've given away all the dumb stuff. I cry at every national anthem. When I sing it, I cry twice as hard. And if I'm in the US, I'm a blubbering mess when the Canadian anthem comes on, because I'm so patriotic. And I love that stuff. So today, I haven't done one of these in a while, and you know this, so act semi-surprised. But literally maybe 4 people in my life know this, is I have a singing coach and I take singing lessons. I love it so much. It's probably my favorite thing to do. I see a really, really kind lady named Emma Harding at Rocket Vocals. And
so good.
Yeah, she is amazing. And she puts up with my signature sound, which is like fingernails on a chalkboard. God bless her, because I'm terrible. But I think for people, it's a thing that I've kind of hidden, kind of embarrassed about it. But I don't really care. I love art and I love to do it. But for someone who's, just over 50, trying to figure out how to do this, how to use his voice as a tool, how to learn how to play guitar, I'll do these things. It's out of the norm, especially out of my friend group. It's none of them know. They will now if they watch this podcast. Most of them don't, so it doesn't matter. But so that's mine today. And I offer a safe environment for you if there's anything that you've always kind of hidden off. It doesn't have to be a big thing. But if there's anything that you're you know what, I've always kind of kept this as my little, thing.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I do have one. And this goes back to an obsession I had when I was in junior high that just, I walked away from, but has always kind of lingered in my soul. And that is a fascination with video games. Oh. And what's interesting is I never, I shouldn't say never, but I don't really enjoy playing video games, but I love going onto Twitch and watching somebody else play a video game. That to me is a beautiful waste of time. If I've got time at home to either watch some YouTube videos or a Netflix show or like go on to Twitch and watch somebody play some Counter-Strike or some League of Legends, I'm in, man. I know it's super nerdy. I don't know why I enjoy it so much, but that's something that like I love to waste time on.
That's amazing. That's a good one. And that one has never been brought up. And it's funny because it is an amazing waste of time. And it's such a bizarre piece of entertainment. It is bizarre.
It is.
But that being said, I get it. Traditional sports like on TV, I mean, like live, I'm in all day.
Sure,
I love it. Like live is like the greatest thing ever. But I'd rather watch a chick flick, or I'd rather watch, Fuckboy Island or any crazy thing. Like, doesn't matter. Like, I'd rather watch that than watch a hockey game on TV. It's just like, it just is what it is. We all have our weird little entertainment kinks, apparently.
Totally.
And it is what it is. We're all original. So God love you for that. And hopefully you feel slightly more liberated that your secret video game watching is out.
Sure, I'm going to build a whole new community around this now.
Yeah, why not? Like, I'm sure in fact, I know lots of people who love that. Love it. It's just, it's a really interesting thing. It's specifically not my kink, but I also haven't tried it. So maybe I'll give it a go. I might be into watch people play Pac-Man. I think that
there you go.
Style, just like
thrilling.
I love it. Bro, thank you. You're an absolute delight to chat with. I'm going to quit fiddling with my stuff because it's going to come out on mic. It's a pleasure to learn all the different sides about you, learn a little bit more about my friend, learn a lot more about in-ears, and teach a bunch of people about in-ears because they're really cool. Please never give up on practicing your art because you're amazing at it. I'm going to be throwing the party out at the OC every 2 years. That's a real expensive party, as you would imagine. So I need a break every year or two. So we'll have to start setting up the next band again early. And thank you for helping me round up that insane band for my wife's 50th. That was amazing. Thank you again. If you need anything, you can always get me. Everybody go to plungeaudio.com. Check out Justin Kudding and the Brett Kissel Band on YouTube. You find them everywhere. It's very easy to find. Thanks for listening. Hopefully you learned a bunch of stuff today about nonsense and non-nonsense stuff. Mostly nonsense from my side, non-nonsense from your side. Everyone, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thanks again for coming.
Thanks for having me, man.